nice to see you all. Can I ask you, because there are so many of us, I haven't got all of you in the on the screen at once. If you could use the chat bar for RTS, so right to speak, I will keep a check on that all of the time and acknowledge that I've seen you, and that will help me bring you in when you have questions. Okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry, there's a briefing going on elsewhere and things keep popping up. I was shown yesterday how to get rid of those, but I haven't done so, so I'm having to put up with them for the moment. Right. Matt, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Councillor Weller. We have two for this evening: Simon Fraser-Brown, Service Manager for Dorset Council, and then Lynn Giles from Action for Children.
Thank you very much. Okay. The other thing I was going to say is just to get the best possible sound. If you're not actually speaking, if you keep your mics switched off, that's helpful. But by all means, keep your cameras on so that we can each see each other, which is really much more friendly. And doesn't seem to affect the sound quality too badly at all. Right. Can I just ask, does anybody, have you all seen the minutes of the last meeting? Are you all happy with those minutes?
Yes, sir.
Nobody's shouting? Great. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? Nope. Great. Do we have any public participation? Any? We haven't received any questions or anything, Matt? Nope.
Sorry, I'm not sure if
No public participation.
Thanks very much. Right, item number 5 on our agenda. Teresa, would you like to make an introduction on that and any scene setting that you have?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. It's great to have such a full and engaged corporate parenting board. It's just so important to us to be able to do that. So really grateful for that. The progress around children's services and particularly the lives of our children in care continues to go well. We continue to see the important indicators that you'll see in the performance framework that are going in the right direction. So we presently have 450 children in our care, so we still have a very large family, but it's not as large as it was. And importantly, the young people who are joining our care are joining on a planned basis, and they're the children and young people that we're expecting. Clearly, COVID, as you'll all understand, and the unlock in particular, is delivering what was very well predicted, which is that we are understanding some children and families who often were previously not known to us, coming to our attention now, having had a very difficult time during COVID, and we're looking to work with them to help them recover and not become, on an emergency basis into our care. But there are some difficult situations for our families out there in the communities. The children that are coming in are increasingly having their initial health and health assessments in a good time and on time. They're increasingly having their care plans produced in a good time and on time. And they're increasingly achieving permanency planning in the right spaces. So we committed a long time ago, when we were at a very low level of permanency plans being in place, below 20%, to have almost all of our children. And we are at that point now into the 90% of our children with permanency plans. So I'm very grateful to the teams who have worked incredibly hard to achieve that. Other parts of the system have also been increasingly performing in the right ways and to really have impact for our children. So our personal education plans, the completion of those, and those plans that are showing real impact to our children in school and our children showing better outcomes in those schools, absolutely also improving. However, we know a small percentage, but a significant number for us, of our children in care have not suitably returned to school. It's only a small number, but we're tracking those children very carefully to make sure we understand what's happening with those young people and how we can support them to come back. Most young people have gone back to school very happily, but we appreciate that for some young people, Anxiety is a real significant issue in these times, and being out of the swim of the normal hustle and bustle of school can be difficult for them to accommodate back to. So we're looking to support those young people back into school in a really suitable manner. We also know that our children are increasingly receiving the support they need around their emotional well-being, but we've got more to do on that, and we need to take a real sense check, and the health colleagues and care colleagues are working together to get a real sense check on how well our children are feeling, and our care leavers in that too. So really focusing, that's a big focus for us going forward, is around the emotional well-being and health of our young people. You'll see for our care leavers, we are showing a small but significant increase in those young people who are in education, training and employment, and that's to be celebrated. We could sit back on our laurels and say, well, we're better than our stat neighbours, but we're very much not doing that. And it is very clear that where we have made those improvements, it's because of a bespoke arrangement and a bespoke package for those young people. So we know what works, and we want to do more and more of it with those young people who are still, sadly, not in education, training or employment. So generally, a very much improved picture, a place where we feel that our lives of our children are in a much clearer place than they were. Too many still placed away from us outside of Dorset. We're still continuing to work with those placements to think about how we can bring those children home. But there's more and more children who do become looked after, and the numbers are lower. As I've said, the increase in numbers of looked after children, the decrease in numbers of looked after children is evidence of that. But as they do come in a planned way, we can more suitably place them in a foster placement than a residential one. And that's what we're being able to do. Lots of work ongoing with our fostering service to make sure that we have the suitable number of carers of the right quality and the right breadth in order to be able to match children and have choice. And that's what's really important to us. And I'm incredibly grateful to the teams who are in very good humour as they are moving towards having to increasingly step through and up. As we all know, everybody's jobs are more complicated these days and they need to do more. And our teams are doing that with all the help of the broadest system possible, including our comms colleagues and a good recruitment campaign and the rest of their colleagues in terms of it working together. We are joined by the new head of our adoption service, and it will be great to hear from Michelle. So Michelle, welcome to you. And we know that adoption has continued throughout this time, and we're incredibly pleased by that to make sure that our children have been able to achieve permanency where that was the right thing for them. We've been particularly pleased to see a small number, it'll always be a small number, but a small number of our children securing early permanence, what we used to call fostering to adopt. So children only ever having one placement at the point of removal from their birth families where that has to happen. So all in all, Chair, a good picture, which I hope colleagues will talk through today around where we are.
Thanks very much, Teresa. Thank you. Right, we'll go on to the next item, which is the Fostering Service Annual Report. Sarah Jane, would you like to introduce this?
So Jane, just before you do that, Councillor Weller, you've shared your screen. I wonder if you might unshare it.
Oh
yes.
Gosh, how have I done that, and how do I undo that?
So by the leave button, if you find the leave button, there's a little cross next to it on the left. Go left.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
That one. That's better. Thank you.
I seem to have lost half the screen now.
You put it right for all of us, I have to say, Chair, so that looks all fine for us.
Okay, well then I can only see some of you, so never mind about that. I'll play around with it, but I'll make sure that I don't share with you again. Thanks very much, Mark.
Councillor Weller, thank you for the opportunity of bringing me in to start talking about our fostering service and the annual report. And John Heron wrote the report for us. He's leading our fostering service at the current time. And I think it's really comprehensive and gives a good oversight as to where we've been really over the last year, and allows us to think about our modernising fostering programme, our recruitment campaigns, and just thinking hard about how we have wrapped around, I think, our fostering family through this time. So I'm not going to say much more other than to pass over to John, but just always to thank our fostering family, who are just amazing. John will give you the update, but we currently have 207 households who are within our fostering family and constantly recruiting more and more people, which is just great for us. So I'll hand over to John. He'll give you the highlights of the report, and then hopefully you'll have questions from there. Thank you.
And before you start, John, can I just ask you, would you like to complete your presentation and then get questions rather than people popping in and out? Would that be easier?
Yes, I mean, I think if it's okay, Chairman, I'd just like to say a little bit by introductions. I presume people have read the report.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, so if I just
I'm really sorry, Chairman, to interrupt. It's Kate Critchell, Democratic Services, but I do believe that probably you are sharing your screen again. And my main concern is that we can all see the chat bar, and that means the chat bar can be seen in the public domain.
Right. Is that off now?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, John, to interrupt you.
That's okay, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so my name's John Heron, and I'm managing the fostering service here in Dorset at the minute. I think I'd like to start off just by saying that this year, last year, has been a completely unprecedented year in any fostering situation. I've been working in fostering for 40 years, and I have never experienced a year like this with the pandemic. And I would just like to completely applaud our foster carers who have continued to take children into their homes to welcome them in at a time when we've had an infectious disease that has been rife in the country. So I've just been blown away and awed by our foster carers who've continued to do that. Equally, our staff have continued to visit as well, and having worked and having contacts throughout the fostering world, I know that that's not been the case everywhere, and I know that not every local authority and every IFA has continued to visit foster carers throughout the pandemic. So we've done that wherever it's been safe to do, and I think that's been really, really important for our children, to make sure that we see our children, see our foster carers, make sure that our children are safe, but also make sure that our foster carers feel cared for. We've also had weekly contact with foster carers where we've not been able to see them as well. So we've been on the phone. So I think those two are really notable things. Another notable thing I think that we've managed to achieve is that we've got an embryonic, Dorset Foster Carers Association, and I can see that Jan and Martin, our chair and vice chair, are here, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but I just want to say that the Foster Carers Association is an association of foster carers run by foster carers for foster carers, but we're very, very keen to set that up because it gives us a conduit, it gives us a voice for our foster carers, and it gives us an ability to talk to our foster carers, so that when we're developing our policies, our strategies and everything like that, that we see it through the eyes of or through the lens of a foster carer as well, so how it's going to impact them. The association's also keen to get involved in foster care recruitment, and who better to do that, who better to help us recruit than foster carers themselves, foster carer training and other things like that. They will also hold a couple of social events, so it's not all work, some of it will be really good fun, so it'll be family-based events throughout the year, but I'm sure Jan and Martin will say a bit more about that. The other thing that we've done and worked really hard on is to develop a fostering improvement plan. And the sorts of things that are on the fostering improvement plan are to develop our KPIs and business intelligence, so that we can better drive our business, and to pull all that together in one place, so that we've got a dashboard, and so that we can see how many foster carers we've got. We can carry out the analysis of for our sufficiency, how many do we need to recruit, where do we need to recruit them, how do we support our foster carers, and all of that sort of stuff. We've also been updating our policies and our procedures, and to make sure that they're fit for purpose. And we've measured ourselves against the Fostering National Minimum Standards. Foster care is along with adoption, even more regulated than other areas of social care work, and we're measured by Ofsted on a whole range of regulation and national minimum standards. So it's really, really important that we measure ourselves up against them. We've also been looking at panel and how panel's been working. And we have also been working on the harbour, and we do intend to implement the Mockingbird programme. The Mockingbird programme is, if you like, a constellation of 6 to 10 fostering households centred around one household that doesn't actually have a foster child permanently in place, but that household will be like granny and granddad or aunt and uncle, and will create that family, very natural sort of support network around that cluster of foster families, which means that you know, when it gets a bit sticky or a bit difficult, sometimes my children will probably go to granny and go stay with granny. That's the same sort of role that that the host family in the Mockingbird system will be able to play. So we've got that. We're starting to develop that as well. Okay, happy to take questions.
Chair, you're muted. Councillor Welly, you're muted.
Sorry, I don't often do that. Councillor Lugg.
Hi, John. We've had some noticeable successes this year, and I was quite confident when I spoke to you before Christmas that things were going in the right direction. But certainly at panel, things have not been going in the right direction. We're still having a high number of cases that get removed from panel at the last minute, and the last 2 Wednesday panels and next Wednesday panel only have 2 cases on them when we can hear 5 cases. In fact, things seem to be getting worse rather than better. So, you know, what are the plans to improve matters in the future?
We have put in different processes. I know that earlier in the year there were some problems around staffing and changes of personnel, and so it was difficult in terms of administration and getting pieces of work to panel. What we have done is we have put in some different points of collation when we're collating the paperwork and that sort of stuff for panel. We've put that in much earlier, so we're calling for papers 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, and we've also devised a checklist so that those are seen by managers and by myself before they actually come to panel. We have been unfortunate really in that our panel advisor has been off on long-term sick, although I'm very hopeful that she will be back to panel very, very shortly. So we've been covering that. In terms of quality of paperwork and information that's coming to panel, I hope that is much better and has a clearer passage to panel.
I haven't found it any different, to be honest, in my personal experience. The foster workers the social workers that always wrote really good reports are still continuing to do so. But I haven't noticed any improvement in other paperwork. There's still an awful lot of repetition, which means that you're reading the same information over and over again. And it would be helpful, you know, if that could be stopped so we could get through the cases more quickly, basically.
Chair, could I possibly come in there alongside John?
Can I bring Sarah Jane in to answer on that?
Thank you so much. I think it's really helpful to have this discussion, and we've been very clear in our stance that this isn't going to be a quick fix, really. It's going to take time just to settle things down. We're in the right conversations with the right people to make sure that that happens. And we have noted progress. And what we're doing is we're making sure that the right families are going to panel at the right time. So there's a really good quality assurance system around that. And we are constantly, as we said we would, it wouldn't be straightforward and smooth. It would have a few bumps in the road along the way. We're aware of what they are, and we're working hard with our staff, and our staff are working very hard as well to try to address some of those things that we know that we need to, as John has outlined.
Thank you. I think that this is clearly a work in progress, isn't it? And we just need to keep a careful eye on that progress for the moment. So thank you for that, Sarah Jane. Thank you, Kathy. Councillor Andrew Kirby.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was trying to scroll through and find my place again. Thank you, John. It's heartening to hear that we're still managing to recruit foster carers and during the pandemic, which is brilliant. I think my question is around 5.2, and you know, brilliant outcomes, but where are our targets in terms of recruitment, and what sort of foster carers are we looking to recruit? I mean, are we looking at full-time foster carers? Are these part-time foster carers? And I think it'd be really useful if we had some clear targets moving forwards.
Yes, we're in the process of writing our fostering recruitment strategy. That'll be with us very shortly. But I mean, my in my head, I would look to recruit 40 new households over the next year, and that I know that we need foster carers who are able to take older children, groups of brothers and sisters, children with disabilities, and children from ethnic minority groups. We have got a recruitment campaign that's running now. We've got Foster Care Fortnight coming up very shortly in May. Again, the focus of that for us is to recruit foster carers for teenagers. That is our biggest need in Dorset at the moment. So we've got that. We're working in collaboration for Foster Care Fortnight with our regional partners, our regional local authorities, having a social media campaign. So we'll out of the 14 days, we'll have social media content going on for 12 of those days. We'll also have our own Dorset information going on, again focused around teenage fostering, and I think in May we've also got a couple of billboard advertisements coming out around Weymouth, again for teenagers. We've also just had a bus campaign, so you might see buses running around at the moment with we need foster carers for teenagers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, can I come back on that?
Please do.
Sorry, and I know this is a really unfair one, John, because it is during a pandemic. But are we on course to meet our targets for this year? Like, I can see Teresa nodding her head down in the corner. It's a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when I was talking at the beginning about, you know, I have been blown away, completely blown away. It makes me quite emotional, actually, when I think that foster carers continue to come forward. People still continue to come forward to foster, and we've been in the pandemic. So, yes, we have.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Councillor Stella Jones. Stella.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's wonderful that we've got all these foster families who've coped during COVID. It must have been very difficult for some of them. Yes. I've got several questions. First of all, about the ethnicity of young people. Do we have any figures to show the difference between young people being adopted and older teenagers, and also people from ethnic minorities? Because I think it's important that we really know what we're talking about with a number of figures, and also how many foster carers are family or kinship. Do you have those figures with you now?
in terms of the ethnic backgrounds of foster carers, I don't have them with me right now, but I can certainly get those. In terms of how many families are mainstream foster carers and how many are connected persons, I can tell you that there are 145 in-house foster families and 58, I think it is, 59 that are connected persons.
Right, thanks. I think it would be useful if we want to know who to target as foster carers. And can I come on to the child's voice? You say we have three councils for children, but it's well run by participation people, and I believe we don't have participation people any longer. So who is organising these now?
Yeah, participation people is coming in house, and I'll be working alongside Matt Chislett to do that piece of work and to be involved. I have been involved in some work with the participating people and envision that continuing. And in fact, I'd like to look at other ways of hearing children's voice, possibly by using Mind of My Own, but that's something that we're in the process of exploring at the moment.
Yeah, I've heard of Mind of My Own, but will you continue with the different children's councils? Because I think it's so important for them to have a say.
I agree.
We'll continue. Claire's nodding her head, yeah. And we'll have reports from that at future meetings. Thank you.
I can see Matthew.
Was there anything else, Stella?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to bring Matthew in there, Andrew, Kirby, before I come back to you, because I think Matthew might have something relevant to say to what Stella has just been asking.
Yeah, no
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Jones, those really helpful questions. Absolutely, we are working still with our young people. We're forming and they're helping us co-produce what those forums look like moving forward. We're having regular weekly and fortnightly now meetings with them to set that up, and there will be further reports scheduled for the board. And there's a little bit more on my updates in terms of the corporate parenting strategy a little bit later, if we don't mind waiting for that part of the report where I discuss in more detail around what the new service equivalent to participation people, and hopefully better than as we move forward. So is that okay if we wait till then?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Matt. Sarah Jane, did you have something on that? So if you want to come in there as well, please.
Chair, it's on that, and it's sort of related to the conversation we're having, really. So to really know and understand our children and our foster care is really important that we talk with them and speak with them and hear what they're saying. So we know we have those touchdowns in place, and we know that's going to become an actual reality. People in the same room or space soon, which is really good. But to really support us, we have Claire's service of providing us with an excellent quality assurance framework, really. So we have people who are independent of our fostering service, but within the council, who are helping us to make sure, John was talking about the standards, the national minimum standards that we have to meet. We know we're meeting them because we are surrounded by people who are helping us to see that every day, really. And also just really understanding how dashboards can help us. So our business intelligence team have built us the most amazing dashboard where we can just look at a glance to see how many fostering households we have, how many social workers we have in fostering, how many children and families they're supporting. And it's really helping, just as John was saying, and Councillor Kirby, it was helpful to focus on our recruitment campaign to make sure that we can see where we have fostering families and where we really want to give some focus. And we have absolutely targeted campaigns, but we always need foster carers who can come forward for any kind, any sort of support they can give for our families. So we are targeting our recruitment for teenagers, but would not want to lose sight of our foster carers who have our younger children as well.
Lovely, thanks very much. Right, Andrew, do you want to come back in now?
Chair, I've got 4 further questions. I'm happy to go after Richard Biggs.
Okay, Richard.
Yeah, it's just my eyebrows were raised on the mention of using Mind of Your Own. I've got the scars from Dorset County Council of numerous software applications, etc., which died a death, and an awful lot of time was spent and money. And I'm just extremely nervous. You know, it's got to be something that the children, young people will use, and they want to use, and they've got the phones to be able to use them. Otherwise, it's going to be another embarrassing situation. You know, I appreciate, you know, it sounds like a good idea, and us adults and professionals might think it's a good idea, but we've got to be really assured it's going to. I wonder who's going to make that decision, and will it be this board who would do that? Would it be the fostering, who would, or the director? I don't know.
Who'd like to answer that question for Richard?
Can I respond, Chair? Because I think Richard, I completely agree with you. We always make the assumption, don't we, that all of our young people have got smartphones, and we know they haven't really. And so app-based pieces have got some challenges. But actually, our advocacy service has already been using Momo, the Mind of My Own piece. So we've got some information that we can gather from them about how useful that's been or otherwise. And it would only ever be one of a range of tools that we use. It's not a very expensive tool. It's not something that we would be having to invest significantly in. But I think what we know from our young people is they like to tell us in different ways. But actually, I am an absolute believer that most of our young people will tell us if we sit down and have a conversation. And so it'll be very much more the primary way in which we'll gather views is around that key piece that we're doing everywhere, which is about relationships. But I think we just do want to have other opportunities as well. So we'll bring that back here in line with the changes that we're seeing with participation people and bringing that in-house. Into a future board, we'll be able to bring more information into the various ways and the range of ways in which we're gathering children and young people's views.
Thank you. That's reassuring.
Thanks very much. Thank you for that, Richard. Right, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try and keep it brief. I think just following on from Richard's question, that was really interesting. And I think where my frustrations have previously been around participation people is that it's very easy for us to handpick a young person that wants to come and engage with us, and I really don't want that. Admittedly, it's going to be really difficult over COVID, going in and meeting up with our young people, but I know full well that there are ways, and I think we discussed you know, how we can engage with our young people, perhaps going out to Nando's, cheeky Nando's. We could go and do that, but I think that what I want to see are those people that will not engage, those unhappy young people, which sounds awful, doesn't it? Go and pick out the unhappy ones. That's not quite where I'm going, but I basically want a better reflection of our young people. Anyway, okay, right, that's that done. 9.2. That's amazing. That's around therapeutic support. Is that new, or is that statutory, or is this like a value added thing? Because that is fabulous. Whoever thought of that.
It's a value added. It's not statutory as far as national minimum standards and foster care regulations go. It is absolutely fabulous, and it is added value. I know that it's something that our foster carers really value. I just wish we had more of it. Yeah,
well, let's have more of it. Is there any way we could get some feedback on that in future in terms of is it working or not, and is it worthwhile? That'd be really cool. 14.7, which is the strength and offer of the support. I think that's again something that I know I've been banging on about how we support our foster carers, and in terms of loans and ensuring that they have enough space for our young people. It's amazing that's going in. And then really my only last point is about 14.8, which is the new oh sorry, I've lost my place, but it's a new body of people that are going to be doing it's Martin, you're on it, aren't you? You're going to be who's chairing it? My question is really about in terms of if there is finance going across to this organisation. Obviously I trust Martin, he's cool, but we need to ensure that that's spent well. So I need to know what is it legally? Is it a charity? What sort of entity is it? But also what are their targets in terms of what are their outcomes? Because you know, for me, I'm really keen to see our young people having their holidays, and I think that's what I would like to see that organisation doing. So I think it's a case of like where does it report to? Yeah, sorry, there's a lot there.
Can I jump in there for a second? That's the next item on the agenda, Andrew.
Because I got all my questions.
No. It's okay, because it is within this fostering report, but then we've got a verbal update from the Hills on that foster carer association. So we'll do that as John introduces that. I'm sure he'll answer your questions if they're not due to be answered. Okay. And I'm sort of watching our time. I'm really trying to get us staying on time as far as possible. That doesn't mean I don't want you to have the opportunity to ask whatever questions you need to. I'd just like to say, John, I'm really very pleased with this report. There was some great things in it to applaud. It's very clear we still have a journey to take. But there were things like, the Mockingbird programme, I think, is terrific. I was really quite excited about that. And the other things, obviously the Foster Carers Association, I think that's going to be hugely beneficial for our foster carers. And they are our biggest asset, aren't they? They're the people that we really need to be investing in and giving all the support we can to, because they make or break our service at the end of the day. So it's hugely important that we do support them. There were a couple of things that I was going to ask you about. One was the dedicated out of hours duty system. That again, I think, will be hugely beneficial. So I think that, you say that you're hoping that it'll be in place, I think you were saying by September. What I'd like is to be kept up to date on that, to see how it's going, and a report on what we can do to make absolutely sure that does get embedded, because again, it comes down to supporting our foster carers, doesn't it? And giving them everything they need, and for them to know that if there is something going wrong, that they tell us sooner rather than later. And there were just a couple of other things, John. Things that we lost 19 deregulated foster parents, or 19 were deregulated. Is that sort of average? Was that because of COVID to an extent, or is that average for the country? There are a couple of stats you've got in there that, as much as anything because of my inexperience, I don't know whether that's on a par nationally, or whether we are we are better or less good than other places. I'd like to think we're better.
Yeah, on average, a fostering agency might think that they would lose 10% of their fostering stock in a year. So if we're around about 200, then we're not too far off that national average, and that's why it makes foster care recruitment is harder to grow, because you're putting them in at the top and some are coming out of the bottom. And the reason that people leave, we haven't had, and this is something that is really reassuring to me as well, we haven't had foster carers leave us to go to IFAs. Certainly not for any financial reason at all. So that's really good. On the other hand, we have had, within the last year, we've had 7 inquiries from people who want to join us from independent fostering agencies.
Yes.
And I think we've had 5 from other local authorities as well. So,
excellent.
We're doing something right.
Excellent.
I think.
I think that's very reassuring. I'm going to bring Councillor Ryan Holloway in, because he hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet. Ryan?
Thank you, Chair. Can you everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Technology has been letting me down this afternoon. Just a quick one, John. On 12 there with the budget, it says that we've underspent actually in the forecast. Are we likely to keep that underspend, or do you feel that those costs are going to start to increase where we're coming out of the pandemic?
I think that underspend is there for a number of reasons. One probably is that we haven't actually got our placement mix right. of our children. So therefore, we've been looking. We've looked to the independent sector to place more children than we should, especially the older ones, which are the more expensive children. And I think as we recruit more teenage foster carers, we'll be able to place more in-house, which, you know, for all sorts of reasons, not least that we will be able to place children nearer to their own communities, to their own families, and that sort of stuff. You know, we'll use some of that, but we'll avoid using some of the IFA budget that's there.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, John. No, just wanted to make sure that because we have underspend there, that we're not going to totally lose all of that money to something completely different. That was just my concern there. No. That money's purely allocated for that. That's what we budgeted for. We're not going to lose that underspend money to something else at all. Then that's what it's for. Then, John.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Stella and then Kathy, and I want to go on to the verbal update after that so that we give the Hills plenty of time, if that's okay. So, Stella?
Yeah, I was only going to mention the Mockingbird programme, which you mentioned, but they do say they offer respite care. Do we have enough places for respite care? And how long does respite, I mean, is there a length? Is it a few days or a few weeks normally?
Yes, normally respite care is just for a few days. You know, it might be for a weekend or even up to a week. Really, it's not short-term care. Yeah. So and we do have sufficient foster carers that can provide respite care, and most of the respite care that we provide is between placements, so foster carers providing respite for foster carers.
And these foster carers are just before respite. They don't also have normally for foster carers.
Yeah. Yes, some are purely respite, but some will actually provide respite alongside other children, provided the other children that they're caring for are settled.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kathy?
I just wanted to ask questions about the Mockingbird and the Lighthouse project. I think they're something that we're doing really well. I was really heartened to read that none of the children have gone missing since they entered the Mockingbird project. Have we got plans to roll it out to other areas after Weymouth and Poole?
The Mockingbird project, we haven't actually started yet. We haven't got that in place, but we will be implementing that over the next months. But the Harbour project, we do have some foster carers working with us in the harbour. Unfortunately, I can't still say to you that our young person hasn't gone missing from our harbour foster carers now, because they have, but they've gone back and they've kept that relationship, and that's been advantageous, really, just having that relationship and that support. I think that Louise Drury is talking about the harbour later, and maybe able to give some more.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks very much, John. John, would you like to introduce the...
Yes.
There you are, Master Jan. Thanks very much.
Okay, so on the 9th of March, I think it was, we had a meeting with foster carers, and we decided that we wanted to appoint a committee to start our Dorset Foster Carers Association off, and Jan and Martin were both selected by foster carers that were there to be on the committee, and Jan is the chair and Martin is the vice chair. So I'll leave it to them to describe what we're doing. And yeah, over to you, Martin. Jana Martin.
Okay, thank you very much. We just wanted to start off by saying how proud we were on that night. We didn't, although John and I had a conversation earlier in that day, we didn't really realise what was going to happen. And I must apologise, I've got a bit of a croaky throat as well. So Martin might have to take over. And when the foster carers sort of reacted in the way that they did and said they wanted us to be chair and vice chair, it was just astonishing. It was just amazing. It was really flattering. So we're very, very proud of that. And it's just to mention that Kaylee Vargas has come forward as treasurer and Mandy Jarvis as secretary. So between the four of us, still very early days, lots of bedding in. We've got lots and lots and lots of things to do, but we've been working really hard. John and I sent a joint letter at the end of March to all the foster carers just to say, you know, here we are, and we're going to. The most important message that we wanted to get across was working as a team. You know, the Fostering Service and the Foster Care Association. That's very important, that people don't think that we're sort of some form of union representing foster carers. It's not like that at all. It's about working as a team, making things better. And I know I've said this in one of the things that I wrote, but John said very early on, if the foster carers are happy, the children are happy. And that really hit me, and that's exactly it. So we've got to look after the foster carers, and I know that's the basis of all we want to do. So I'll just give you I know I haven't got long, but I'll just give you a very quick run around of what we did. I went round to, in the end, I spoke to probably 30 foster care associations all around the country, which was really eye-opening. To be honest, some are doing some fantastic work. Some have people, patrons, really famous people supporting them, fundraising. But some associations had failed, and they were the ones that I was most sort of interested in, because obviously we wanted to know why they'd failed and what they were doing to build themselves back up again. So they've been really, really helpful. And while I was doing that, meanwhile, Kaylee, as the treasurer, has been doing some fantastic work finding out about sort of the financial things that a foster carer generally struggles with, sometimes a mortgage and things like that. You know, you've got to have the right things in place. Kaylee's background is mortgage advisor, that's her job. And then we realised, we put a note out to all the foster carers to say, okay, tell us what you do. And there's just phenomenal talent, and all of these professions that we can tap into. We go from sort of, mortgage advisors to people who are going to run the pantomime and are really good writers, so we can get the children involved with the Christmas pantomime. It's just been fantastic. And then we have Mandy, who has been looking at getting foster care teams together within all the carers and making sure that we've got meetings in place. We want guest speakers to come to the meetings, and hopefully all of you councillors will be coming at some point to just do a guest speak from anything from how you decided to become a councillor, or your experience of fostering, or and I know some councillors have actually been in the care system themselves, haven't they? So that would be brilliant. And so we put together roles and responsibilities of each of us. We're looking for what would you call them? The champions. We're looking for champions. So as you know, Martin and I are parent and child fosterers. So we want people have come forward to say, well, actually, we could champion the children that have some extra needs. That's what we do as foster carers, so we can speak up for the needs of those children. People have been coming forward to say, well, I take newborns, I can speak up for the needs. So it's just about putting all that together. We have not had a shortage of volunteers coming forward at all. It's so exciting. We've just got to make sure that we put it all together properly now. We've got a huge list of objectives. We said to the foster carers, okay, warts and all, tell us everything. We want to know everything. We want the good stuff. We want the bad stuff. We want everything. And we got it. So we've got an objectives list, which is like, I think we could have written it on wallpaper and it would have gone down. Lots and lots and lots. So what we've done is we've put it all in groups and we've put it in themes. And then we haven't quite done this part yet, but we want to choose the top 10. And within that top 10 of objectives, needs, whatever you would like to call it, or issues, we are going to choose between all of us the top 5. So the top 5 things that we'd like to achieve within a year. If we do them quicker than that, the next 5 will drop in. So we'll always have the objectives ongoing.
I think the key as well with the objectives is that they are shared objectives across the whole service. They're not, you know, and John's aware of those. You know, they're objectives we're going to need to work together to achieve. Foster carers on their own can't achieve them because, you know, I mean, as you can imagine, if you ever pick 5 top objectives, communication is always probably going to be up there. You know, and you know, it's pockets of really good communication, pockets of not so good communication. But I think, you know, for us, that's the big one. If we can sort that out right across the service, and maybe I'm looking through rose-tinted spectacles, but we can, you know, we can deal with a lot of the other objectives that are on there. So, so yeah, so it's about working together.
So we have, so everybody's sort of on board for that. We've done the skills matrix, as I said earlier. We have sort of penciled in a date of mid-September for an AGM, if you like. But before we get there, and at that AGM, that's when, because we're all interim positions, that's when the foster, and we all felt that that was the right thing to do, to be interim, because lots of foster carers don't know who we are, a small core of people do. And, you know, although we might be known by some, we certainly wouldn't be known by all. So we all felt comfortable with interim positions. So come September, that will go out to a vote to the foster carers, and they will become positions that will be voted on every year. We would, and John and I were talking about this earlier on today, Foster Care Fortnight is a perfect opportunity for us to launch the association, because at some point we would like to go for charity status, because even though there is some funding that has been pledged for us for the association, and for that we need to produce certain things like the events and the website and things like that. But we would really like to sort of fundraise for our own money, so we can make sure that we've got some all through the year. We've got some really, really cool things for all of the children and young people of all ages, but also the children of the foster carers as well. So it's all inclusive, you know. So I'll hand you to Martin now. Oh, sorry, just to say, Foster Care Fortnight is a great time to launch that. So
yeah, I think with the launch, you know, we want this to be a credible organisation, you know, that's respected. The foster carers, I think, you know, want to be thought of as fellow professionals within the service, and I think that may be an area as well, perhaps, where we can all work to sort of bring that up. I mean, Chair, you were mentioning how important foster carers are, you know, and you know, not to sort of beat on the drum, but you know, we are there 24/7. You know, we don't knock off. So, but we can work on that. You know, there's some really good people out there. So, you know, for us, it's to be a credible organisation, and actually, the foster carers that we've spoken to are very keen to help improve the service as a whole. There's a lot of experience, there's a lot of people out there from business backgrounds with certain areas of expertise that are happy to be in little working groups that maybe to help with stuff. You know, John's aware of that as well. He's sort of nodding his head. You know, we realise there's a lot to do and, you know, a lot to take forward, but that's certainly key. You know, and really, yeah, we want to help change. We want to help the improvements that clearly, you know, Dorset Council are wanting to promote. So again, we've said that it's not a union. You know, we don't want to be saying we want this, we want that. We want to work together. we want to work together on equal footing. I think that's the sort of key that we're getting, you know. So, you know, and that's really it. I think we've said enough. You know, there's a lot of work to do, and I think, you know, it's ratification. I think we want to launch it with ratification at the sort of highest level. You know, a bit of a fanfare. You know, and
lots really, of a fanfare.
Yeah, lots of a fanfare. Yeah.
And on a serious note, we obviously need the ratification to go forward for the Charity Commission to even open a bank account. We need to say, you know, the official documents to say that yes, you know, Dorset Council supports us to do this.
I have to say I feel exhausted by your enthusiasm. I don't know why I've got a feedback there. But thank you for that, Martin and Jan. That's absolutely terrific. I've got a couple of messages in the chat bar. One is that Councillor Kathy Lugg says she's happy to do anything to help.
Thank you.
Councillor Carol Jones has made a suggestion about the launch. So you have, I think I'm fairly safe in saying that you have support from all of us. I think it's a great initiative. So you know where to get hold of us at any time, and we will be in touch with you. And we want you very much to be part of this board and reporting into us and telling us, asking us for help when we can give it, asking for our support when we can give it. And I've got Sarah Jane wanting to have a few words as well.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if Teresa would like to just go before me, because I saw Teresa's hand go up first.
I was clapping, I think.
Yeah, I was clapping, but I also put my hand up. I was clapping for sure, because I'm just so delighted. I'm just so delighted. The strength of any good fostering service is in its association. And we sit on the same side of the table, exactly as you've just described, Martin and Jan, and it's really helpful because it means that we will get it more right. I think that's still bad English, Kate, that will do for that. We'll get it right more often. Because we'll do it together, and I think that's absolutely critical. So you have our authentication, you have all of our kind of authorization to proceed, but you also have the absolute right to demand of all of my staff and myself in this group. So I know lots of my colleagues will be signing up for the Panto. I'll do the teas if that's okay, but I'm happy to help in all manner of ways, professional and social. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just come in just on the end there, it's just been amazing to watch this develop, really, and just so Jan and Martin's enthusiasm is completely infectious, and it just captures you really. And I think what it's done is it's allowed us to really spread that amongst our fostering families. So touching down with our fostering social workers this week, they're absolutely on the same page as Jan and Martin, just so enthused by the fact that we can do this. They can see opportunities everywhere, and we're right alongside. And for me, you know, Jan and Martin know that we'll be there for them, and, you know, really encouraging everything. And for me, I know that it's more eyes, making sure that we are doing everything we say we're going to do. And I'm delighted about that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Andrew Parry.
Thank you, Chair. And obviously, my grateful thanks to Jan and Martin for everything you do. And as one of the councillors who knew you when you worked for the County Council, I commend you on reversing the ageing process and retirement and looking younger and fitter than ever. So this is fabulous news. I'm sure I'll take note. What I did want to just pick up on, you were very kind in that you looked at examples of other associations, and in particular of interest were those that hadn't enjoyed success or found certain challenges. Were there any obvious pitfalls there that you came across that perhaps we can help you avoid? And my other question, I'm sure with all councillors, if you would like us to be at any of your events, please receive an invitation. We'd be delighted to come and talk to you about our own experiences involving with fostering.
Oh, thank you very much. We will take you all upon that. Yes, there was actually a theme. It was most certainly engagement. It was communication, poor communication that they could not get to the bottom of. and there was a them and us, a definite them and us situation. Of two of the associations, there was three that had failed. Two of them had sort of hit rock bottom, learned by the mistakes and coming back up, and the third one just has stopped, and that authority do not have a foster care association anymore. But they give us lots and lots of advice as to how to avoid that, and and how to move forward. So that was really good, really good.
I suppose for us, based on experience from our previous life, I think it's great engagement with us at this level. I think the important thing is to get that middle level within the organisation engaged. I mean, you guys, that's life. That's life in any company, any business, any organisation. But I think that's the important thing for us, to get that enthusiasm. We got to get that enthusiasm with the foster care and the members of the association, but also getting that foster carers within that enthusiasm within the organisation, and that sort of middle level, really. So, but I think some of those other foster care associations have sort of struggled with that, Yeah. So.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed.
But there's also one thing as well. We had a call today to join the Skills to Foster course, the next one that's running in May. The original call was for us to talk about parent and child, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, is to go to that course. I think foster carers have, invaluable information for new carers coming in. But also now, of course, to talk about the Foster Care Association as well. So we're getting them as soon as they come in. So that's brilliant. But the final thing is we're not. It'll be impossible to run the pantomime unless John agrees to be Dame. So.
Done. Done. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And Matt could be the other one.
Oh yeah, Matt could be the other one.
Right, if we move on, we're running a little late now, but we will attempt to catch up if we can. Sarah Jane, do you want to introduce the next item, the Aspire Adoption report?
Thank you, Chair. So again, I have the privilege of introducing great work, really. I'm introducing the report of Aspire, which is our fostering adoption agency. I've got fostering on the brain now, adoption agency, and I'm going to bring in Michelle also. And as Teresa said, I think this might be Michelle's third week, so she's really having to get her head around our amazing adoption services. And you'll be aware that we have a regional adoption agency. So it's ourselves and BCP. So Michelle's going to talk to you. The report currently does talk about the entire adoption agency, so it's not always terribly clear which children we're talking about who are just Dorset children. But what Michelle will do, you've read the report, she'll give you the absolute highlights from there. And then between Michelle and I, we'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for that welcome. I'm Michelle Whiting, and as you heard, I've just started working with Aspire, so I'm managing that. I don't know how much you'll know about regional adoption agencies and what they do, but Aspire was set up in 2017, so it's been going for it's going 3 years now, and it works as Sarah Jane said, for Dorset and Bournemouth. And the idea is that it recruits adopters, assesses for adopters, it matches children to adopters. Unusually, it also takes case responsibility for children, for Dorset children under the age of 3. And the reason for that was because we felt we'd be able to adopt them quicker if we took responsibility for them once the decision was made that adoption was in their plan. We prepare children for adoption. Obviously, particularly older children need quite a lot of preparation and careful work, and they need life story books which help them about their past. And then once they're adopted, we need to support the adopters and the children post-placement. That can be for many years sometimes, or sometimes children come back later in time when they hit particular transition points, for example, when they leave primary school or when they hit teenagehood. We also work for you assessing families wanting to become special guardians, and we assess them and we provide post-placement support for them. And then there's also all the contact services for birth parents, letterbox commissions, independent birth parents, and support families, for which we commission families for children to offer independent birth parent support. The important thing for us really is that we work really, really closely with Dorset, because if we're going to achieve timely adoptions, we need to be working really closely with Dorset so we understand which children are coming into the system, which children might need adopters. And the better we work with Dorset, the more able we're going to be to achieve things like early adoption. So that's something that we're working quite hard on. One of the things I guess you probably want to know is, as well as what we do, is how well we're doing it. I didn't write the report, it was actually written by Jenny, because obviously it needs to be ready for today. But I have run lots of different adoption services, and I've also undertaken lots of adoption diagnostics and set up a regional adoption agency. So I think I know my way around adoption fairly well. We also had an independent report by Coram Bath, and Coram Bath are kind of the leaders in adoption in the country, really. And they also have assessed that Aspire offers a really good service, actually, a really good sound service. It is a bit of a jewel, actually, in terms of its adoption services. It's very, very high quality. So we have people coming from all over the country, for example, to look at our life story books because they're seen as models of good practice. So there's some excellent work that happens within Aspire. It's been a difficult year, and we've heard from John how hard that's been, supporting children, staff and families caring for our children. But actually Aspire's been very, very good at keeping business going as usual. It was the only RAA in the country to not stop its panels. We kept panels going throughout. We've got a fantastic chair, and because a lot of things were already electronic, we managed to move to virtual panels instantly, so we didn't lose any panels at all. And that was really important because it meant that we didn't slow down in matching children, we didn't slow down on proving adopters. So they really do need to be congratulated for that. In terms of the hard facts, we have 26 children had a should be placed for adoption decision last year. 22 children were made subject to placement orders, and 23 children were placed with adopters. 4 of those children were placed in early permanence. That's where they're, instead of going to fostering and then on to an adoption, they actually went straight to the adoptive carer, who is at that point a foster carer and remains so until the decision is made by court. And what we found is that actually in Dorset and the surrounds, there's actually quite a lot of people who are willing to take a high level of risk. So they're willing for the adults to take, we'd call it the adults taking the risk rather than children. So the adults who very much are very clear they would like their own adoptive child, but because they know that the needs of the child are paramount, they're willing to be foster carers to that child, to facilitate contact, lots of contact with birth parents until the court makes a decision. And sometimes the decision isn't for them to, for the child to stay with them. So then they facilitate the child moving back to the birth parents or to alternative carers, whatever it is the court decides. But we've actually found that we've got some really, really good people in Dorset that are willing to take that level of risk because they recognise how important wherever possible for children to have that stability right from the get-go. So we're very convinced that we can actually do a lot more in the way of early permanence, but the trick is going to be having that very tight tracking together with the childcare teams. Because one of the difficulties with early permanence is that babies are often, because of their circumstances, babies are often born a bit earlier than we expect. and obviously people need to have time to organise their lives, and because they're only in the hospital usually for one day, that it's quite a challenge to match the early permanence adopters up with the children. But we feel very confident that we can do that, and that is one of the things we'll be working on very hard next year. So last year you had 21 children adopted, which is great for Dorset, because it means that those children are very likely to be stable for the rest of their lives. We've looked at adoption breakdowns from the incept of Aspire, and actually of the 210 children in total that Aspire have placed with adopters, only 5 are disrupted. So it's very, very small amount of disruptions over those 3 years. So adoption is a very secure place for children if they're not able to stay with their birth parents. One thing just to be careful of, when I'm talking about those children, they're not the same children. So it's not the same children in placement order that went to the adoption order, because obviously they've started their journeys at different times, and some of them are different lengths. So these are the numbers that's what happened in last year, but they're not all the same children. So quality is quite hard to measure, but obviously the disruption is a very important one. And you'll notice that there will always be more children that have a should be placed to adoption decision that don't go to placement order, and that's because sometimes the plan changes. And actually sometimes after the placement order has been made by the court, the plan then changes. Sometimes we know more about children and it's decided it's not the right move. Sometimes parents are able to make substantial changes in their lives. Sometimes we find other people within the wider family and it's felt appropriate to move children there. There are a small number who we struggle to find adopters for, and some of those children end up in long-term fostering. Sometimes foster carers actually decide, no, we want to become adoptive parents, and children remain there. So sometimes the plan does change for children. The challenge we have is really finding adopters for sibling groups, large sibling groups, and adopters for children with more challenges, older children with more challenges. If we haven't got adopters in-house, and we always prefer to place with our in-house adopters because, one, we know them really well, but also because it's much easier to support them, because if they're local, it's much easier to make sure we can put the right support services around them. But if we can't place with our own adopters, we do look elsewhere. So we've got quite a good system where we can look regionally, nationally, and find adopters from other agencies. It does cost more to get adopters from other agencies, particularly if they're voluntary agencies. They charge more than the RAAs. One of the things that we get measured on, and again, like very much like fostering, we have national minimum standards. So everything we do, there's sort of measures. It's very, very tight. It's very, very tight in what we can and can't do. And a key thing that's looked at is timeliness. So you'll see on the report, and that's at 3.14, we've got some charts there which are actually the number of days of children moving through the system. And the two key ones that we look at are A1 and A2. So A1 is the number of days that a child has from entering care to actually moving into the house of their adoptive family. And we look at the number of days there. And for Dorset, the number of days is actually 357 in last year. What we do is we look at it against averages, and they are slightly out of date because government gets all the figures in from every local authority and they put it together. And our most recent ones, I know it sounds very out of date, are the 16 to 19 averages. So the averages from 2016 to 19. The average then was 382 days, and our average was 357. So that's quite comfortable, really. What I've heard is that the average for a lot of authorities has gone up this year, and not surprisingly because of all the COVID things. So it's been more difficult to visit, etc., etc. So I think to keep ourselves below average when we know that other authorities we know it's gone up from speaking with them. I think we've done pretty well there. So I was really pleased to see that. The second timeliness one is the one that we call A2, and A2 is the days between the local authority receiving court authority to place, we call that the placement order, and finding a match for the child. And again, the England average for that is 170, and we're just above that at 177. Again, I think that when we get the new averages, they will change a bit because of the delays around COVID this year. And it is an average of a small number of children. So you can see it's the average of the children that we adopted for Dorset is the average of the children that were placed with adopters last year. So that's 23 children. So those 23, you just have a couple that are take a long time, and it really makes a difference to your number of days. And we actually had a couple of older children that took longer. So there was one particular child who, it was a really good news story that she was adopted. It was actually an 11-year-old being adopted with other sibs. And it did take a long time, but rightly so, actually, because in that instance, we needed to make sure that there was a lot of support put in place, and we needed to really make sure that that was the right plan for the child. So, yeah, it was a good news story. Special guardianship. So that's actually been quite a pressure for the service because there's been a lot more than we've been expecting when we set up the service. So that's something that we are actually going to need to work quite hard at next year, and that was identified in the review as well. So that's something that we need to think about because we are getting significantly more special guardianship assessments coming through, and that's partly because there's a greater emphasis in the courts at the moment on placing with the family wherever possible. So they're wanting a lot of family members to be assessed, sometimes even when social workers are saying this isn't viable. So that's a bit of an issue for us, and we need to do some more work on that. In section 5, you'll have seen the finance, and I have to say that the figures there are not accurate. So we have got an overspend, but it's significantly less than what was put into that report. I think the report was done well before year end, and I think we're quite close to getting the final figure now. I can't pretend that we have got the absolute final figure, but it's certainly a lot less than was written in the report, and I can provide the figures when we get to when that's actually signed off. That wasn't something that was unexpected. That was something that that people are aware of right through the year. But the decision was made that actually we needed to have a really good look at what Aspire was providing and whether it was meeting the needs of Dorset and BCP to the high enough standard. It was decided that it should be looked at in detail and look at the finance model. The decision that was made when setting up Aspire was for it to be a local authority hosted model, and obviously some other RAAs have gone into different models, some have become VAAs. The advice that we got was actually the model that was chosen by Dorset was the right one, and the other ones are more expensive, and that there'd be significant cost in actually changing the model at this point in time. and basically they concluded that the quality of the service was good, and certainly that's been my experience. I've looked at panel reports, I've looked at some cases, I've started talking to stakeholders, and the feedback I'm getting is that Aspire offers good services and offers value for money, but there are some areas for development, as you'll be aware from the report, that we need to do some more work around the staffing capacity, and obviously the financial model. That's been planned in, and we've got a board that we report to, and that's set for the 17th of the month, and there's a detailed financial plan and a detailed service development plan that's going to that board on the 17th. And the plan is that we will get to a point where the agency's on a much sounder financial basis. And that's unfortunate, really, because the quality of the staff is great, the services are really good, but we need to sort out some of the things around it. So in terms of what children get and in terms of what adopters get, they get good services, you can be assured of that. But we do need to make sure that we're not in the same position next year.
Thank you very much for that. I haven't got any RTS. I don't know why I'm getting this feedback. I'm sorry. Yes, I have got Martin and Jan. Martin and Jan?
Yeah, I've just got a very good question. You've just sort of briefly mentioned feedback. I wanted to ask, how do you know on a sort of ongoing basis that you're actually doing a good job? Do you ask feedback so at the end of every case, say, from all stakeholders like birth parents, adopted parents, foster carers, social workers? Is that part of the process to make sure that you get, a really good look at if you are really doing a good job or if there's things that you need to improve on?
Yeah, I think there's always improvements that you can make to improve your feedback, but we do have a very systematic approach. So obviously we have adopters are asked at various points in the journey. We have feedback points, and they're asked by panel as well, and they have direct that whenever they go to panel, actually they have a feedback form. As to the children's social workers, as to the adoption social workers, the panel does a feedback report, and we ask adopters as well, and we have ongoing support. We offer ongoing support to adopters as well. So after they have adopted a child, we ask for feedback when they've been having post-adoption support as well. And we have like newsletters that go out to adopters, and we ask them, what are the issues? What are the issues for them? We have the Christmas parties, we have the summer events, and again we're asking adopters what they would like.
Okay, so and how is that fed back in? So if once you get your feedback, how does that get fed back in to improve the service?
So, well, actually, that's a really good question. So people have got a really good feel of what adopters like and don't like, but it hasn't been formally formulated. And actually, that was one of my actions. That ought to be in the annual report, the feedback that we're getting from our adopters. So I think that's quite helpful if you're supporting that. So when I go back to the team, that would really the annual report needs to have a slightly different format, which does emphasise the views of our various stakeholders and where possible, children.
Thank you for that. I've got a suggestion that to help with the feedback that we're getting on mics, we all keep our mics off when we're not speaking. I think most of us are doing that. It's probably only me that isn't, because I'm popping in and out all the time. I've got Councillor Andrew Parry with a question.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Michelle, and congratulations on your appointment. I appreciate that relatively new in post you may or may not know the answer to these questions. But as heartbreaking as it is to hear that we have adoption breakdowns, it is merciful that they are relatively few in number. You indicated 5 over the course of time, and that really is very low. What I wanted to understand is those families that have gone through that sort of breakdown, are they put off reapplying to become adoptive parents? Are they in any way marked against them reapplying to become adoptive parents? Or what learning do we take from those situations when they occur to understand how we can avoid that happening both for that family in future and other families as well? The second point I wanted to ask about was, had you seen a significant demand from step parents to becoming the adopted parents of a child, and what sort of pressure that was putting on the service?
To answer the first question, we take adoption breakdowns hugely seriously, and we always do what we can to prevent. And Aspire benefits from some very good psychological services, and we put a lot around families to try and prevent breakdown. Whenever there is a breakdown, there is a formal meeting. And a very formal meeting where we have to do numerous reports and numerous analysis of why that breakdown's happened, and that's shared with the teams, all of the teams, and we look at the learning from that. We didn't have any last year, so I haven't got one that I can use it as an example, but I don't know, of the 5, I don't know how many were Dorsets, and there hasn't been any for the last 2 years, so I haven't got any recent learning I can give you an example, but we have got that set up as a process, and that's something that actually we're expected to have as part of our adoption regs, because it is so significant. In terms of the other one, I haven't got the figures, but we have had a bit of a demand for, we call them partner adoptions now, and we have had quite a demand for partner adoptions, and people can go different routes, so it doesn't always have to be an adoption as such. We can have parental responsibility orders now, for example, and we work with people to look at what's right for them in their particular circumstances. But one of the things about adoption is that children have more legal rights. So, for example, if a parent dies, children have more legal rights in terms of wills and things like that. So that can be surmounted if people don't want to actually adopt. But for some people, it's very important that children are on the same legal basis as their birth children, or any other birth child would expect to be.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Jones, Stella Jones.
Yeah, Andrew asked virtually the same question I was going to ask about adoptions when they break down. And presumably the child goes then to another foster carer, as well as having left the home where they've lived for a while.
Yes, yeah, that would mostly be the case. I would say that they would normally either go to a foster placement or possibly even a residential placement. But as I say, they're very few and far between, and we haven't had any in Dorset for the last 2 years. So,
thank you. Anything else, Stella?
No, it's just good news that most of them work out very well.
Excellent. I've got Matthew and then Richard.
Thank you. Just really quickly to come on the back of that. So in terms of sadly, when we do have breakdowns with adoption, the learning from that's not only from a Aspire's point of view. We work together and we share that with our staff, and we're just in the next round of samples for around permanence. I'm going to be working with Michelle to share that with our staff, and we mirror that as well with the special guardianship process as well, so that our staff are up to date with key learning, and hopefully we don't repeat any of the same mistakes, and we take the strengths from the work as well. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Richard?
Yes, I was looking at the item near the end, the appendix on the Strategic Partnership Board, which is really the formal governance. It doesn't have any councillor involvement. It is obviously, I suppose, looking at the operational nature, but I was perhaps a bit surprised that there isn't portfolio representatives on there. I'd just like to know, perhaps, I guess it's Teresa, the director, to answer how effective that board is working. You know, do all members attend? Is it really effective? Because that's really our reliance. Apart from this opportunity here, we rely on that board working effectively. Just some feedback on that, please.
Teresa, would you like to come in there?
Thank you, Chair. So, sorry, my apologies, Richard. I lost a bit there, but the Strategic Alliance Board you're referencing, or the Adoption Board?
Yeah, the Strategic Partnership Board, I think it is, which has yourself, I think it representatives from Bournemouth and Dorset.
Okay, let me answer both just so we're clear. So, so the Strategic Adoption Board, so the RAA is line managed by BCP, and I chair the Adoption Board. But on the adoption panel are Councillor Parry and the lead portfolio member for BCP. And that again, is I think, as John has referenced earlier, is a very standardised membership, and that's the requirement of membership there. And other people who have either have experience of being adopted, who are adopters, as well as key officers from both local authorities, without the board becoming unwieldy. So the adoption board works really well. I have to say, it's got some good attendance. I think where Michelle will support us, and thank you, Michelle. It's been a really easy to access presentation from you this evening, and I think we all appreciate that, making sense of how we're doing our work. Where we need to see more differentiation at the board is around the performance data, and I'm confident we'll now get that, because the data you've been hearing tonight is for both BCP and Dorset, and it's really important that we understand how the joint service works, but we really also obviously want to look just at Dorset data, so that's where we'll be looking at that. And it's in that board that we've already been raising all the challenges about the financial position, and I'm very pleased to hear that that is more in line with where we thought it would ultimately be, and so that's good news, thank you, Michelle. But we need to obviously make sure that we continue with that review, which I think the messages the board's given previously is we think that the service is a little management heavy, and that there are potentially different ways in which we could organise some profile roles. So, and then, Richard, the Strategic Alliance Board, which is where ultimately any of our adoption work would feed into, is chaired by Councillor Worf, attended by Councillor Parry and Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Does that answer your questions, Richard?
It does, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And presumably, I mean, this was an annual report. Do we get sort of updates during the course of the year, Teresa? We do.
Yeah, so we'll bring data updates as we get them, and we can absolutely add that to the data set, can't we, Matt? Thanks.
Lovely, thanks very much indeed. Michelle, welcome to Dorset. I don't know whether you're new to Dorset, but if you are, you'll find it's the most wonderful place to live. So welcome to Dorset, and welcome to the meetings. It'll be interesting and very nice to be working with you in the future. Thanks for coming this evening. We move on to the report on the harbour service. Sarah Jane, do you want to lead in onto this, please? And as I say, we are running late, so you're going to have to really whiz when we get to the end, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Not much by the way of introduction from me, because we've had updates quite regularly around the harbour. So I'm just going to leave it to Louise Drury and David Parr to give us highlights really from the report that's been shared with you already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd just like to introduce my colleague David Parr, who's going to be part of this presentation. He's been absolutely instrumental in leading embedding our police colleagues within the harbour, and so I think it's just really helpful that he's here this evening. This paper is really providing colleagues with an update of the progress that we're making in the implementation of the harbour. And I'm taking it as read that the report has all been read and understood. So I'll just pick out a few key highlights as we go through. So as you will recall, the harbour is developing an integrated service for our more complex and troubled young people to ensure that their needs, no matter how diverse, are addressed within a single team of trusted and skilled workers, be it to prevent care, support placement stability, or reunification if in care, and a smooth transition to independence when leaving care. So through the development of a dashboard, which is really well underway now, which has been strengthened over the most recent weeks through embedding our recording into our children's record system, Mosaic. So we'll be able to report directly from there. And also a financial tracker, which is being developed at child level data. And we will use these both to evidence where through the delivery of our core offer, cost is being avoided and outcomes are being improved. And also at the point of concluding our work, we are also seeking feedback. I hear, we mentioned feedback earlier, and how important that is. So seeking feedback from our young people, their families, and also their social workers or early help practitioners. And this will ensure that we're able to demonstrate much better outcomes for our young people and also the financial benefits that we are seeing for the council and for partners. So since I last came to the board to talk about the harbour, the staffing structure of the adolescent service has now been remodelled so that staff are able to wrap around and provide stability to young people irrespective of where they're being cared for. And young people are receiving services from the harbour rather than from a specific residential home or care placement, which will ensure that there is access to a wide range of services available without the need for referral. Also, our rolling programme of recruitment is still underway and continues. And as at the 29th of March, the total number of vacancies now include 1 residential manager, 2 deputy managers and 22 youth practitioners and 5 senior youth practitioners. And so you will see that there is a significant investment in this project. And we are delighted to be seeing a really strong response to our adverts, and our interviews are really yielding talented practitioners, some of which we welcomed in this week. So we're delighted to be seeing them. I'm just going to pass over to David, who will just give you a little brief update on the 2 PCSOs who are embedded in our team. David.
Good afternoon, I'm David Brown, the Inspector for Waverford Portland Police. Before I go on, I think my screen's showing a screen sharing again. I don't know if we want to rectify that because the comments are in there and you'll all be distracted and not want to hear what I'm saying by reading people's desktops. I don't know who's sharing at the moment.
Hello, it's Kate Critchell, Democratic Services. I think it is probably Councillor Biggs. And if it is, you just need to press on the cross box next to the leave button.
Apologies, is that sorted?
That looks like it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yes, as Louise says, Dorset Police have been very happy to supply 2 PCSOs from our neighboured policing teams across the counties, Mark and Barnaby. They're detached completely from their policing duties and are embedded within the harbour to work alongside their other harbour youth practitioners and managers as one of the other sort of youth workers, but bring into that their knowledge and experience around policing and build those relationships. So they're both full-time in their roles now, and we're also looking to recruit an analyst, a researcher to work within the harbour to support the risk assessment process and draw in information from police systems and other databases to make sure we have a very comprehensive risk assessment package in place around our young people so they're fully supported and engaged. The 2 PCSOs we have, so Mark and Barnaby, are working, say, full-time, engaging with the young people on a one-to-one basis and also doing some youth work and outreach work throughout the community to rebuild their connections and contacts. Obviously, youth engagement was part of their role as a PCSO, but it was only one small part of it. So now they're really building their knowledge and experience and those connections and contacts throughout the community and throughout the council and our partner organisations to really improve their role. What we're seeing is that they're seeing these young people on a daily basis. They're getting to know them and engaging with them. So rather than just being the police that see them when they're in a moment of crisis, or they perhaps commit an offence, or they've been missing and they're returning, and then these real crisis moments, we're actually working with them on a daily basis and really seeing these young people, them getting to know us, we're getting to know them in the kind of the downtime. And that's a really positive aspects of policing can then come across around our roles around that we're here for more safeguarding and protecting people is actually the vast majority of our work, and actually arresting people and doing that sort of policing is only a very small portion of what we actually do. So it's really about developing those relationships, and I'd say that the feedback I'm getting from my staff is they're really enjoying and bringing some real value to the organisation.
Thank you, David. And I'll bring David back in a moment just to talk through our case study at the end. So alongside this, we have a targeted recruitment campaign. You'll have heard from John earlier around recruiting for our foster carers, for our teenage young people or older young people, which includes the recruitment of our specialist foster carers and also supported lodging carers. We have monthly information sessions which are being held, and last night had a really lovely conversation with a potential carer who is very excited by what the harbour has to offer, and the difference in approach that the harbour will be bringing. So that wraparound for our carers, being able to have access to a clinical psychologist, a communication practitioner, and also having that support outside of those hours when it just gets a little bit darker, a little bit quieter, where you just need to sometimes just be able to pick up the phone and go, okay, is everything okay? And so this is really our unique selling point that we are promoting through that recruitment approach. We have also been really pushing on in embedding our pathways and processes. So the 28-day pathway, which is a really important approach to effectively supporting our young people to be returned back home safely and securely, where we may need a small period of time for them to come into our care, but with a real focus of those young people in returning back to their families. Also, our PRIDE process, so prevention, risk, identification, disruption and evaluation. So this approach brings together a multi-agency group to identify, consider and manage potential and current risks impacting on our young people. And so as you heard David talking about the role of the police researcher and analyst, and that will play a really vital role within this, this approach that we will have here. And also our steady and settled pathway for young people aged between 16 and 25 years. What we will see through the delivery of this pathway is us working collaboratively with housing colleagues to really engage with our young people with high needs, where there is an imminent risk of relationship breakdown in their home and who may be at risk of eviction through loss of their tenancy. So we will wrap around those young people and support them to be safely in their spaces. So activity and case study, I just want to clarify, you heard John say that actually one of our young people had a missing episode, and yet in this report there were no missing episodes being reported, and that was because that at the end of March 2021 we were able to report that our missing reports had decreased and that there were no missing episodes for our young people in harbour placements. Actually in April we did have a missing episode, but as John said, actually young person went home, and they went home because they wanted to go home back to the foster carer. And also the difference in our response to that event is, it is really well understood why our young person went missing. And also we were able to, through the out of hours offer from the harbour, support that carer during that period of missing. so that she didn't feel that she was holding that on her own, that anxiety, that worry, that care for that young person, but actually we're holding that together. And which really supported a very successful return home very swiftly as well. Also, between December 2020 and March 2021, we have increased the number of our young people who are being supported by our outreach service, month on month, so from 26 to 40 young people. And on average, each month, around 50% of our young people are what we would kind of call on the edge of care. And we have supported all of those young people to remain at home, so preventing the need for young people to come into our care. And also, we are seeing an increase in the number of our young people that we're working with, accessing a range of activities. And we know that, the importance of that and how that can really support young people in strengthening their emotional well-being through having the opportunities for that self-defined success. And then, as you'll see, we do have an anonymized case study, which, if just David takes us through the first couple of paragraphs, I think that will just bring to life some of the work that we're doing in the harbour.
Thank you. Yeah, so the anonymised case study relates to Archie. It's 15.6 on your document. So Archie was 13 when he entered into foster care. Now 15, has experienced a number of placements throughout the county. School attendance is very low, and there's a risk of exclusion. Archie has low self-esteem and anxiety. He's known to CAMHS, but not actively engaging. Police records indicate Archie's linked to around 30 different crime occurrences, either as a victim, a witness, named as a suspect, or named under child protection. And most of those relate to either missing reports or domestic violence reports from home. A significant amount of them are violent crimes. And if we link in with ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, it's clear to see that a person like Archie would be susceptible to a number of the criteria around ACEs. So Archie moved into the foster care placement earlier this year. It started in January. And during the period of January to March, as Louise said, there was no missing reports. If I bring up a profile picture for Archie, if I can share my document, it'll be that one there. That should come up on your screen fairly soon. That would be a profile report. Is it showing up? Can you?
Yep.
Super. So a profile report there is in relation to all the different occurrences, and it links as to why the police might have contact with them, ranging from antisocial behaviour, crime management occurrences, missing person reports. So when Archie was young, 2007, 2010, there's been this constant contact, but as Archie entered into those teenage years, 2018, and then a massive spike into 2019, a number of these relate to missing person reports and also crime occurrences. And then as we go into 2020, still significantly high, but then there's this drop down, and let's say from January this year, Archie's been working with the harbour, and we see that massive reduction down to just 1 or 2 missing person reports which have occurred recently, and then the management occurrence that I've got running for Archie at the moment. So it's clear that the harbour has had that impact to reduce the risk, and when we look at things like missing, it is a key factor within ACEs, but when you're looking at when a person goes missing, it's a significant risk to the young person in terms of child exploitation, child sex exploitation, physical harm, mental harm, county lines engagement, and then you lead into drug and alcohol abuse as well. And that creates so many problems that are actually then very difficult to correct or unpick, and it creates that long-term impact on someone's life. So we can prevent that person from going missing in the first place and work with that person so they're not engaging in crime and other sort of harmful activity. It sets them up for a much more successful life. And if you actually then look at the cost-saving benefits, if we're looking at a crime record, it costs around £300 for a police to fill out a crime record. Even if that crime goes nowhere, when we actually then put a massive investigation into it, the cost spiral. A missing person episode will cost between £300 and £1,000 every time someone goes missing to the organisation. So if we can reduce those missing instances down, there's a significant financial benefit, but actually the main benefit is around that avoidance of risk and that avoidance of ACEs for the young people, and just sets them up for a much brighter future.
Thank you, David. So just in conclusion, the finalised staff structure, harbour staff structure, will provide us with the operating capacity to really deliver the core offer of the harbour. And as we implement our pathways and processes, culture and values, we aim to safely reduce the number of our children who enter care and improve outcomes for our most troubled young people, and also reduce that cost on local authority, criminal justice system and health services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise and David. Do I have anybody have any Councillor Jones?
Yeah,
Councillor Jones?
I think it's great, all the work that's being done at the harbour. It sounds brilliant, and hopefully we'll very soon be able to visit to see the setup there. 2 questions. When someone goes missing, how long do you leave them before you count them as being missing, rather than just going down to the local shop? And secondly, the outreach work. Now, I know other organisations do outreach with youngsters. Do you work with them? Say, Dorchester Youth Centre, I know there's a lot of outreach. Presumably you work with those organisations as well.
Yes, thank you very much. So in terms of the missing reports, what we're seeing with, in particular with Archie, is, absolutely trying to understand what those missing reports are about, but equally recognizing that the more we breathe warm air into our relationships with maybe other members of the family, friends, etc., then the less likely there will be a need for us to report that young person missing. Because if we know where our young people are, then then we can actually then do the negotiations about, well, actually you're late, but you're not missing. And so, it is absolutely on a case-by-case basis. We will do that in, understanding our young people's vulnerabilities. Being missing at 6 o'clock in the evening may be, very risky for a particular person, but actually not for others. So it is about taking all of those factors into consideration, and also having conversations with each other, and taking as many steps as we can as well to locate that young person ourselves, particularly for our looked after young people, but it is absolutely understanding all of those factors too. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, is that okay? And in terms of our outreach, so we are developing really strong relationships with our outdoor education colleagues and also our youth centres and our youth workers. So really reaching out and having those collaborative relationships too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Andrew Parry.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it might be helpful, as we're particularly on this item, if I just give you a very brief update on the bricks and mortar side of this. We've heard a lot about the new culture and the new way of working, but I'm very pleased to be able to inform the Corporate Parenting Board that Teresa and myself have given review to the tenders that we've seen, and we have approved a recommendation to appoint a contractor. I'm not in a position today to be able to confirm who that is with you. That is still commercially sensitive, but we will do very shortly, and as soon as we can, we will. But it further underlines the pace at which we are rolling out the harbour project and our determination to keep it on track, and I thought the board would like to know that.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions in the chat bar, so I'm just going to thank Louise and thank David very much for that report. That's looking very promising, very, very encouraging. So thank you very much for that. Right, we've now got the corporate parenting strategy update, and then the corporate parenting data set. Matthew, that's both you. And you've got, if we're going to finish on time, you have 7 minutes, but I'm sure none of us want to rush you, so you go for it.
No worries, Councillor Wheeler. With your permission, I'll give a brief summary and then just ask if there's any questions, just to allow the discussion, if that's okay. So just starting then briefly with the corporate parenting strategy, we were talking about participation earlier in the meeting, and obviously participation people, that service is now being developed within Dorset Council. it's a really exciting opportunity. We're looking at how we can extend our membership, how we can develop those forums that, for example, Child and Care Council, Care Leavers Forum and things like that moving forward. We've got a real keen bunch of children and young people that are regularly attending. There's always room for improvement, and we're just really trying to get those numbers up. I've got some exciting an exciting workshop, for example, into our next corporate parenting board, where we're going to look at a 40-50 minute slot with our care leavers to really give a flavour of what it's like to be a child in care. Work is in progress. We're meeting regularly, and I'd like to in the future have more of a formal update to the board. Certainly we'll have in the next board, for example, our annual survey and the findings being presented. So it's a work in progress, but it's a really exciting time, something that's felt by the young people as well as myself and other professionals that are involved, really. The other bits that I just wanted to highlight in terms of our strategy was around point 2 of our strategy, promoting better physical and mental health and well-being through improving access to health. We've put a lot of work into our strengths and difficulties questionnaires, for example, and as part of that, we've seen better data cleaning and improvements in our scores. But also, we've spent a lot of time in upskilling our staff. It was only today that I was sitting in a Thinking Thursday, a training workshop with a number of our staff, just reminding the importance of our SDQs, and actually we covered off EPEPs as well, personal education plans, as you would have seen in the data pack. Another aspect that I know has been a concern for the board, but again, a lot of work and commitment from a number of professionals, both from health, CCG, as well as children's services and various departments, is our initial health assessment rates and having initial health assessments completed within 20 days. Although it's not in your reports, for February and March, I can report that we had 100% consents received in time and sent to health, and 100% of those assessments have taken place. I'm mindful of time. If I just pause there, because I think I might have a few questions, and I don't know if it's relating to specifically what I'm talking about now.
I've got Councillor Lugg wanting to ask you a question, Matthew.
Thank you.
Have we done a survey recently of foster parents?
Councillor Weller, I'm sorry, Councillor Lugg, apologies. I'm not sure. I might have to defer to Sarah Jane or Teresa or John on that.
Chair, I could
Sarah
update.
Jane?
I can see John's also got his hand up. So John, if I
Okay.
miss anything, please come in. We have just very recently. So we do contact Ofsted, ask us to contact our foster carers. So we've done the survey that goes back to Ofsted, and I think we've had quite a good return. And we've also done our own survey. John, do you just want to give a few more details about that? We were conscious not to duplicate the questions that Ofsted asked, because they ask the same thing every time, really, which is important. Do you want to add to that, John? Could have lost him. It's a long way.
Are you there, John?
I'll keep going. It's fine. Yeah,
I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
well done.
I'm here. Sorry, I actually was muted. Schoolboy error. Sorry. Yes, the Ofsted one has gone out, and there has been a return. We are conscious of survey fatigue, and are about to send out our own in-house one very, very shortly. So we've developed it. So the answer to your question is Ofsted done. We're just about to do our own.
Thanks for that. Is that okay, Kathy?
That's fine, thank you, yes.
Right, if you'd like to go to continue, Matt.
Thank you. In terms of, let me get back to my notes. I clicked off to see everybody in the call, sorry. just in terms of ensuring safe and stable accommodation within the family, and then obviously looking at friends or moving to a permanent placement where appropriate. A lot of work has gone into our permanence. I know Teresa Levy pointed out the percentages, and I know that we all as a senior management group as well as our staff are looking as well at quality as well of those permanence plans and improving our pathway. So a lot of work has gone into, for example, a best practice guidance around permanence planning, and that's also going to be mirrored for our care leavers in terms of our pathway plans. So there's a lot of development work going on. We're refining our long-term fostering process. We're looking at our special guardianship routes as well and working with Aspire and BCP. We're looking at refining our adoption and early permanence pathways as well. They're in the final stages. So a lot of exciting work really going on there. Just because of time, do you mind if I just highlight from the data pack some of the things that we're a little bit concerned about, just to bring the attention to the board, if that's okay?
Yeah. Please do. I don't want to rush you. It's much more important that you give us the information that we need.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Weller. One of the main points that I need to bring the board's attention to, whilst our IHA rates are really positive, there is an aspect around dental dental annual reviews. That's a national problem, a national difficulty because of the pandemic. And I just want to make everyone aware that we're absolutely working with CCG. We're working with the, our child and care lead nurse to absolutely escalate where our children are being seen. We have seen a significant drop. We knew that was coming, and I know that we have the support of Teresa and the senior management team, as well as our Quaro service, in trying to get those appointments back on track. It has been a difficult year with the pandemic, and especially in the sort of dental industry because of the type of work that they do. So I want you to be aware that we are working closely with a number of partner agencies to get that back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Jane, I've got you in the chat bar, but I think you've already spoken, haven't you? Did you have something else to add?
No,
right.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, no, good. Thank you for the report on that, Matt. That's certainly just obviously you've just clarified one of the things I was going to ask about the dental statistics, but it's good to see as well that we are improving on the SDQ assessments as well. I see that they have been back on the rise again, so that is good news. That is positive, because I know I've expressed concern about it in the past about why there was a decline on that. So no, I just want to reiterate that is good to see that is we're making progress on that. So thank you for that.
Thanks very much. This is a sort of declaration of interest in that I predicted this problem with dentistry in 1980 when I worked for a local authority doing dental inspections in school. The most traumatic part of my life, I think, was doing dental inspections in school. You know, 1,000 pupil school. Getting through dental inspections, but when they pulled that service, I predicted that we would have problems with children's dental health, and now we have problems with children's dental health, and it's not just down to COVID, I'm afraid. It was down to bad management in 1980, so it's none of your faults. I think we're done. Are we, Matt? We've just got confirmation of next meetings and so on. Do you want to come in there?
I think, sorry, Teresa, did you have your hand up? Sorry, or no?
No, I just wanted to support you with the message, Kate, but we have written to all of our reviewing officers for our children in care to really support them. I don't know about the rest of you, but actually I went to the dentist this week for the first time since many lockdowns. It has been quite hard to navigate that whole process. So we know our foster carers and others are doing the very best they can, but it has been quite hard to get some appointments at times. So a big push now. We all completely understand the relationship with heart health is so important. So it's a big push. You know, we in Children's Services know about jumping up and down from teeth up to complex coordination of service delivery, but having good teeth is helpful.
So certainly is. Right, back to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Councillor Weller. So just to confirm, the next informal board will be on the 10th of June. I believe invites have already been sent out. And then just to move us on to an important bit of business, really, Councillor Weller is extending our membership. Do you mind if I mention the names now?
Do you want to carry on with that? So I can do it, but you carry on. It's just to confirm this. So go through the list.
Thank you. So there are three individuals that we would like to extend membership to. The first being Kim Rickford, who is the head teacher for the Forum Centre. She's also one of the Virtual Schools governors, and I think she would make a really good regular member to the board. This is something that we've discussed previously. The second person we have met and had presented to the board is from the youth offending team, David Webb. He's the service manager, and I believe that's in our terms of reference, that he attends. He has asked, though, just due to commitments, if we could extend the membership to one of his deputies, Nikki Denny, as well, which will support regular attendance at the board. And then finally, the last person is a police representative, and Stuart Dipple, I would like to put forward to join the board. He's the Detective Inspector for Public Protection Unit, and again, very keen to join the board, and it would fit into our terms of reference for our board. Thank you.
So members, are you all happy with those additions to our numbers? Unless you shout out no, I'm going to assume that you mean yes. So that's lovely. And look, it's 7:05. I think we've done pretty well, don't you? I think it's been an excellent meeting. Thank you all very much. Thank you for those of you who've presented reports. I think we are definitely moving in the right direction. So our thanks need to go to you, Teresa, and Sarah Jane, and Mark, and everyone else. Too numerous to mention, but you're all doing a grand job. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, have a lovely evening. There's still a bit of light out there. So.
And the sun is shining, but it is in Weymouth anyway, but it always shines in Weymouth.
You know that case.
As I keep telling you, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you all. Cheers now.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.